Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV Podcast 470. I am your host, John Van Derzen, otherwise known as Johnny V. I don't have a co-host tonight. Terry Miller earlier today told me, he's like, "Oh yeah, man, I forgot to tell you, I'm flying over to Croatia and then somewhere else. I'm gonna do some doubles thing and maybe playing a Masters event." What do you do when you're a world traveler like Terry Miller? You just do that. And I thought about calling up Dust, who's been co-host with us before, but he just interviewed Isaac. He got to do the whole Tournament Central, which is really cool if you haven't watched it. After most of our broadcasts for the DGPT, we've got, sometimes it's Brian Earhart, sometimes it's Nate Perkins, but Dust got to do the hosting, and so he got to do a nice interview with Isaac. So rather than subject Isaac to the same host twice, because we know how people hate that, just ask Reddit. Just ask Reddit how popular that is. I figured I would just write up some questions, take some questions from the board, and interview Isaac, who's sitting here in our... Is it still the Disc Baron Digital Green Room? I don't know. He kind of does some stuff with Terry on the side, so we'll call it the Disc Baron Digital Green Room. And he told me he's kind of a morning guy. So without any further ado, we're going to bring in our 2023 PDGA World Champion and two-time Major Champion, Isaac Robinson. Hey, Isaac, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. One of the things I love, I'll say this, one of the things I love about when Terry's not here is that I don't usually broadcast till 1 in the morning. So I can actually get some sleep, because even after we do our after show, there's always the private after show where we shut everything down and him and I will sit next to each other and just gossip. For usually about an hour.
Yep.
About things he hears on tour, things he sees, people he talks to, places he goes. We kind of chat about general stuff, life, kids, all that other stuff. Things that, first day of school stuff, things you don't have to worry about anymore, which is what today was.
That's pretty
cool. Are you on the social medias? Do you get to see all the pictures of all these friends of yours maybe that have kids going to school?
Oh yeah. For sure.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on your PDGA Worlds win. It really is a truly an elite group of disc golfers. They get to call themselves champ. Like from now on, people call you champ, and that's what you get to. And you've got two majors, an even more elite list of people who have multiple majors or even multiple majors in 1 year. Do you feel like, you've won 2 majors this year. Do you feel like your game elevates to majors, or do you feel like you kind of play the same all season and you maybe just happen to win these 2 majors? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think maybe a bit of both, but I'm definitely putting more work, more practice, more time kind of studying the course when it comes to majors than I do week in and week out on the pro tour. Just because they do have a little bit more weight, and I want to play my best at the bigger tournaments. So there's definitely more time, more thought put into it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. How early did you get to Green call it Green Mountain, the Smugs? It used to be the Green Mountain Challenge, all this other stuff. So how early did you get to Smugs compared to some of the other players? Because we saw the week before your brother take down a win. Awesome Ezra, doing some phenomenal playing over at the AFDO, but there were a lot of players that went to the AFDO. You didn't. You chose to go to Smug. So how soon did you get there, and how much practice did you put in on the course?
Yeah, so I mainly just wanted to take a rest from D-Glow, because that is a very strenuous course, walking up and down, throwing all those long shots. So I took about 4 or 5 days off and headed to Vermont, I believe on Thursday or Friday of the week before Worlds. So it felt like I got I think I got 2 or 3 rounds on each course, because I played mixed doubles as well. So that was 2 rounds in 1 day. So yeah, I felt like I knew the courses. I knew exactly where I wanted to land on each hole, and just had a great game plan going into the tournament starting on Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yep.
I know. I'm so used to it starting on Tuesday, because for up until this year, it's always been a Tuesday through Saturday event. So it even confused me up until about 3 days before the event, when I was like, oh man, I get to start Tuesday. And someone was like, nope, Wednesday. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. That's awesome. I get to, I have to take a few less days off of work for me. Um,
Oh
what
yeah.
does your practice routine look like when you go to a course? I mean, you've played these courses before, so is it more
Mhm.
of you take notes? Is it mental as far as what you think you're going to throw? Obviously, conditions change. We saw that from day one to day two. For crying out
Yeah.
loud. Do you just kind of have a general idea? I'm probably going to throw this particular disc on this particular hole,
Mhm.
or is everything kind of in flux?
Yeah, I like to pick a specific disc per hole, and I have a backup or an alternate disc that I'll throw if it's super windy. When it's rainy, kind of all bets go out the window, and it's just kind of whatever's dry at the moment. But um, yeah, I'm picking specific discs, and usually when we practice the courses, we'll play competitive rounds with the guys. So it's usually 1 or 2 shot rounds, and we're playing the courses like we would in a tournament. So it gets you get a lot of good practice playing competitively while also learning the course. I like to practice that way. So
Is there anything on the
works out.
line for these competitive rounds? Is it more pride or like ice cream, or what is it? Like what's the
Oh
what's
yeah,
what's the
yeah.
going bet?
It ranges from ice cream to candy bars to drinks at the gas station or whatever.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned it, I mentioned it. Round one, we saw just an absolute downpour compared to the other days. And you were one of the players that had to wake up early the next morning to to tee it off. Is that correct?
Yes, so I was the first tee time 2 days in a row.
Yep.
So I was able to finish my round the first day, and then
Mhm.
I still had the early tee time the next day as well.
Do you feel like that was an advantage, not having to wake up? I mean, you still kind of had to wake up early because you had an early tee time, but you didn't have to get up like
Mhm.
2 hours earlier, like some of the guys who didn't finish. Do you feel that was an advantage for you, particularly, or
Yeah, I it was nice. Like I don't know, I'm a morning person, so I wouldn't have minded too much. Um, yeah, I think it was probably I don't think it necessarily had a huge impact on my rounds because I played in probably some of the worst rain I've ever played in. So I think I would have rather gotten up early
yeah, we talked to
if I
Chris.
had a choice.
Yeah, we talked to Chris Tatar about that for the women's round, and she
Hmm.
was saying that there were 2 or 3 holes that it was just the most brutal weather she has maybe ever played in, and that's I can understand.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I was sitting here behind the controls for FPO, taking care of that, and I looked at that and I went, "That's." I felt
Mm.
sorry for my cameramen, because all I'm thinking is equipment and rain and cameras. We had cameras dropping like flies because of the wetness, and you know lenses steaming
That's
up, and I thought like, "Oh, this is miserable." And then I thought, at least they're not playing. They can kind of just huddle up a little bit. Maybe they've got
mm,
an umbrella guy or girl that's helping them out, but the players have to get out in that every single row, and just at some point, as you know, it just becomes nothing's dry.
yeah, yeah. There was towels are no use at that point. Chalk bags are out the window. Everything's soaked.
It's just weighing you down at that point. So you got to play
Hmm.
with the same group first round and second round of the
Hmm.
event because there was no shuffle due to the cut in the at the first round, the players having to re-tee. Did well, I'll ask, did you like that? Was that comfortable for you? Because you had and I don't even know who your first round was with, particularly as far as players go, but you were in like fourth or fifth place. The other guys clearly
Hmm.
not nearly where you were. Was that was
Hmm.
that comfortable for you, or was it kind of weird shooting with people that maybe weren't anywhere near your score?
Yeah, it was weird. Not because they weren't close to me in score, but because I couldn't see the people that I was, tied with, or a couple strokes behind, who were teeing off. Who knows when really. There were cards were all over the place, so it was a lot of watching live scoring. And the card I had was great. I got along great with the guys, and we just had a good time. We were like, all right, we're gonna do this again. Thankfully, it's so much better conditions, and I think we all had a very enjoyable time playing 2 days in a row. Not often you get to do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little more often for you being up near the top of the cards. Sometimes those don't always shuffle as much, so you might play with the same guys,
Mhm.
two maybe of the 3 guys round after round. But
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about the final round. We'll jump to the final round. Obviously, you played a couple at Brewster, you played a couple at Fox Run, 3 at Fox Run, 2 at Brewster. Um, you're kind of known for being a woods golfer, not necessarily an open golfer, but you've said, and I've heard you say in interviews, this year you've really tried to uh, push away that stereotype. Like you're not a distance thrower, and that you're going to carve the woods up. So a lot of people didn't
Mhm.
necessarily pick you for being able to keep up at Fox Run, and going into
Mhm.
that third round with a lead, and then birdieing the first 3 holes right off the bat. Do you think that that helped put extra pressure on the other guys on your card to make them press more? Because we saw they were guys that were trying to gun for you on that card, and it ended up not happening.
Mhm. Yeah, I think getting off to a hot start. The holes aren't incredibly long over at Fox. There's a couple of them, but the start is pretty short. So getting those first 3 or 4 um, was very key to like just the momentum, the mental game. Because if I had gone even par through the first 3 or 4, then it's a problem. Then we're talking I'm battling back as opposed to setting the pace. Um, so it was very very important for me to get those 3. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I think Evan and I both went 4 for 4 to start the final round. Which at that point I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to, you know, what am I gonna have to do? Because it was just head to head. He wasn't wavering. I wasn't going away. So uh, it was, yeah, like you said, it was a close battle for a while there.
Yeah, Evan Scott, who you're right, went for 4 for 4, and then unfortunately ran into the triple bogey on 5. That he just
Yep.
at that point, then it really kind of took the wind out of his sails. But it was for a while,
Hmm.
it was looking like it was going to be the U2 running away with it, until a little
Yeah.
further in the round when we start to see some of the chase card really. I mean, they were within. I'll say they were within striking distance. They never quite got
Hmm.
to
Oh
you,
yeah.
but we saw Eagle and AB and Matty O all starting to push towards the middle of that
Hmm.
round, especially when we got to hole 12, and 2 of them eagled it.
Yep.
Were you at that point in the round? Were you aware of the scores? Were you looking at that, going, "Oh, geez, seriously, he eagled that? Come on, man! Like, give me a little
Yeah.
break."
Yeah. It was. I think I told my dad this, and I was feeling a little comfortable after hole 10. I was like, all right, I think I got 4 or 5 strokes on the closest one to me, and I was like, all right, I can just kind of coast a little bit, and I got comfortable, and next thing you know, I got 2 pars in a row, and the people on chase card went 3 down through those 2, and just like that, I lost 3 strokes, and I was like, oh gosh, and so I knew I had to pick it back up on the back, and that's when the pressure started kind of hitting a bit. But yeah, I was watching scores the whole time, especially on that back.
I I was watching the round, and I watched you throw OB on 12, and from where I originally thought, I was like, oh, I don't know if he can get up and down from here. And then I realized once we got
Mhm.
closer versus where Calvin was and you were, we saw that you clearly could get up and down. But when you threw that OB,
Mhm.
I just immediately thought like, oh God, 3 stroke swing right here. Considering,
Yeah, on that one
versus like
hole.
he's not going to eagle. Like do you go for eagle at all on that hole, or is that a birdie hole for you?
That's a birdie hole. It's hard to turn down an easy birdie hole for me in my mind. You know, I I don't know if I can get close enough for an eagle putt. Maybe like a edge of circle to
Mm-hmm.
look at it, but for the most part, I'm just playing it for the easy birdie.
All right. Yeah, you did seem really kind of calm for most of that final round. Um, and you say it's probably around hole 12 is when the nerves started kicking in. How do you react when nerves start kicking? What do you do to calm yourself down to really
Mm.
dial in the focus?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I do is I just start talking. Um, you know, Thankfully I had my dad on the bag as a caddy, so I could just talk to him about whatever. I think we talked. I can't even remember the conversations we had, but just random stuff, just keeping my mind off of the stress and the game at the moment. So yeah, just talking a lot about just random things, talking about what shots I'm going to throw and stuff like that. Um, Really just trying to think about anything except the pressure and the people watching, and just kind of enjoy the moment. And, you know, yeah, stuff like that.
We might have talked about this after your Champions Cup win. Do you feel like the speed of your play helps negate some of the nerves that you have because you're on the tee, you throw pretty quick, but when
Mhm.
you're on the green, you're the fastest player probably on probably on tour. You're the fastest player. You're up and it's in and that's it. Do you feel like that helps you
Mhm.
kind of just not think about what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think just if I sit and look at the basket too long, I it gets ugly. I start thinking about, oh, where should I, what specific change should I aim at? What's the wind doing? What all these thoughts going through my head, and I'd rather just look at the basket real quick and just hit the putt and get it out of there.
I, I actually, because I don't have Terry here to kind of fill in some of the questions, I actually did a little bit of research before the interview here, and can we blame your dad for your European Open loss? I mean, you've got Champions Cup with him on the bag. You shot
hmm
a 1060 average there. You've got Worlds
hmm
where you averaged 1057 with him on the bag. European Open, you
hmm
averaged 1036, still above your rating, but no dad. I mean,
Yep.
do you think about flying him out next year, maybe?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna set aside some of the prize money I won this year. I'm gonna just fly him out, and he's just gonna caddy, and we're gonna take that one down.
Nice. And I can assume we're going to see him at USDGC. That's a lot close. Is that a lot closer to home for him? You get Georgia, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it's about 2 hours away, so he will definitely be there. Yep,
And is he
gonna
for
keep the
sure
streak
going to be
alive.
on your bag, or is Ezra maybe thinking he'd like a 20-point ratings bump?
See, I think Ezra puts his wife. She has priority.
Okay.
Um, so I don't think Dad's gonna get the bag for Ez.
I mean, 20 points. That's a good. I don't know. Maybe,
I
I'm sure.
mean, he might have to have a conversation with her and see, like, look, honey, I really need this.
Big bro's showing me up here. I can't. I can't
Yep.
let that happen. I was telling somebody on the phone this today. Um, very similar feelings to watching you tap in that I had the last time we were at Smugs, and I got to watch. At the time, it was Paige Bjerkes. Now Paige Shue tap in, and she was there
Mhm,
with her. Like the very first people that were up there were her mom and dad, like giving her the biggest hug.
mhm.
The very first person after you tapped in was your brother. And there's some phenomenal photos, some of the better photos I've seen all year of like him just literally picking you up and
Yeah.
hugging you. Was that what kind of moment was that for you?
Oh man, it was just something that I'm never gonna forget. I tapped in that putt, and I just turned around, and I don't know if there's security at all at Worlds, or people not supposed to be going on the green, but Ezra was full on sprinting. He got there so fast, and nobody was stopping him, and
He's a
it was
big guy.
just
Ain't
the
nobody getting in
most.
his way
Yeah.
if he's going full head of
No,
steam.
no. No, he sprinted right over, and it was just such a cool feeling to stand there, thousands of people watching, but just enjoy that moment with him. Because this is something we've talked about since we've been growing up and watching the sport, watching World Championships since 2014. Uh, so it was just such a special moment. I'm so glad he could be there for
I know my only surprise was that it wasn't dad first. And I know you got your moments
it.
with him down the fairway and up on the tee of 18, but that was my only shock was that Ezra somehow beat dad. But
Yep, yep.
uh, speaking of 18, we'll step back just for a second. You went into 18 with a couple strokes. I had always said that you need to go into if you want to feel comfortable going into 18, you need to have three. Like two just
Mhm,
isn't quite enough because you could go OB left and then maybe we saw a few of the guys like Eagle and AB. No, I don't think it was AB. I think it was Eagle and someone else who threw a forehand, landed on the tee, and then got up and rolled down the hill OB. So there is
yep.
potential for double OB there. So I always feel
hmm
three strokes is kind of the comfort zone. Did you have an idea going into 18 where you felt comfortable? And did you have a game plan? Because a lot of people say just throw it deep and long. Just go OB left.
hmm
Don't even think about it. What was your you took a different route.
Yeah. going, 17 was kind of a bonus birdie, so I had those three strokes going into 18, and I changed up discs before I was throwing a D1, and I took it to an X1 on that last round because I knew, I wasn't going to go be right with something that stable, and I knew it was going to get to the ground. It has zero glide, so I was just going to land right in the middle of the fairway, and then if I had to, just jump putt my way up to the fairway, to the basket, and I kept asking my dad. I was like, "All right, so I can get a double bogey, right?" And he was like, "Yep, double bogey." And I was like, "Perfect." So that was kind of the goal, just keep it in the fairway, keep it in the middle, and not throw OB. Because if I throw OB, then I'm sweating, I'm stressed, and who knows what happens at that point. So just keep it in the middle all the way down.
Does it? I mean, you're clearly everybody knows 18 plays best with a nice backhand and then an easy forehand. Not
Mhm.
exactly your forte. Do you feel like you walk up to that hole and go, God, I wish I'd put a few more hours into that forehand? And are we gonna see you with a forehand? You have the, you know, probably, and right now the numbers don't lie, the best backhand turnover on tour. Everyone used to say it was James
Mhm.
Conrad. He had his putter shots, but I don't think numbers lie this this last few years, and it feels like it's you. But are you looking at maybe learning a forehand at all?
Yeah, I would say I have a good scramble forehand at the
Mm-hmm.
moment. I can get up and down through some trees from 250. That's about the limit. So it's like right where I need it. Um, but I definitely want to get that kind of bigger distance to where it's 300, 350, and I'm throwing it confidently. There's something about standing on the tee pad, lining up a forehand that just gets in my head. I don't know what it is. I can throw it just fine from the middle of the woods off the fairway, but something on the tee pad just messes with me. So I'm going to be working on that a good bit.
That's yeah, plenty of off season for that, definitely.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Looking at the Pro Tour standings after this, Vinny has you by like 130 points. He's almost untouchable no matter what happens.
Hmm.
You've got
Yep.
Gannon by only 6 or 7 points, but you're second in tour standings. Do you feel like you're right now? And this is a tough question to answer, but do you feel like you're the best player in the world right now? You just won the world championship. Do you feel like you're the best player in the world?
I'm going to say I have to say no to that. I think Calvin is just head and shoulders above everybody else. The season he's had, the podiums, the consistent just top 10 finishes every single week is just unparalleled. Um, I like to think me and Gannon are competitive on my good weeks, but I think he's still got a little bit on me. Um, but I put myself in that 3 to 5 range,
Yeah.
comfortable there.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, that's good. I mean, are the other guys a little upset that you're getting all of the fame? Because I mean, they all almost all of them beat you in that final round. You only shot a 10. We saw I think Gannon
Yep.
with a 12, Alden with a 13. I mean, you
Yep.
coasted in. I mean, should you be getting all of the attention for this?
I know Gannon's very upset about all the attention and all that stuff, but it's just that's what happens. You win a big tournament, and you get the attention. So he'll be everybody will be right back in it.
Yeah.
A couple weeks from
Definitely.
now.
Speaking of Gannon, he needs to answer my Instagram. I honestly wanted to have him. I was going to try to surprise you and have him as my co-host tonight, and have him just
Oh,
sit
that would have
like
been
the
sick.
Terry position and interview you. But I tried to slide into his Instagram DMs and he didn't answer me. So I think he's got to look at that and say yes, it's okay. I'm not some weird. I am some weird creeper, but not that way. So um, at Smugs, obviously, there's a lot of different courses, different styles. Was there something particular like a disc that you relied on more than anything? I mean, we're going to kind of work into our conversation about post Worlds plans, but at
Mhm.
Worlds, was there a particular set of plastic or discs that you really threw more than anything else?
Yeah, I think the 750 M1 that I'm throwing is just my go-to mid in my bag right now. It's just a disc that I know, like every little bit of its flight. I know exactly what it's going to do with the wind, the angle, the speed, just everything. I know backwards and forwards. So that was when I relied on Brewster a lot, and then my lightweight 400 SD1 out on Fox was my go-to driver out there.
When you say lightweight, what are you talking? 168, 170? Like
Yeah,
what?
one's I think it's 167.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit lighter than what usually
Okay.
people throw.
And I guess that leads into the next question about post Worlds plans. I believe I saw a post from someone at Prodigy. I don't know if it was on Reddit or on Twitter or something, but more or less saying they've got some plans for you and some plastic coming out,
Mhm.
some discs. If you had your way, and I don't know what's coming out, you can tell us if you know, but what would your ideal disc be from Prodigy? Like what would you like? Like plastic type, mold, and
Mm.
weight. Like what if you could have like, oh, this is awesome. I want to sell these.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites right now um, would be the 400 Glimmer FX4. So it's an FX4 that's a little bit more beefy than just the normal stock runs. And I got it while over in Europe, actually. And it went straight in my bag. Um, and it's just a little bit more overstable than the other FX4s. And the Glimmer just looks sick. You know, it's got those like metal flakes in it. Um, so that would be kind of my go-to choice for commemorative disc.
Okay. Um, it, I might be wrong here, and there's a really good chance I am. Did I see a commercial with you touting a special disc, a new disc? What? Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not. I was like, I think it was Isaac, but it might have been Alden, and I couldn't remember for sure. Because when I'm doing the broadcast stuff, I'm really not paying attention to commercials, so it kind of just pops up, and
Oh
I
yeah.
catch it out of the corner of my eye. But tell me a little bit more about the disc that is coming out or is out, maybe.
Yeah, so it already came out actually, and it's called the Archive, and so it's my signature mid, my collab series with Prodigy, and it's a slightly overstable mid range with a lot of glide. It is working its way to replace my M1s. My M1s are beat just so perfectly. I've thrown them for years, and the Archive right out of the box flies like the mids I want. It's slightly overstable, has a ton of glide, and it really just holds the line that you put it on. So, been doing a lot of field work with that, and super excited. People seem to be loving it. So, I'm super happy about that as well.
Someone on the board, Dustin, actually asks, "Are we going to see more Isaac discs like the Archive?" Because it seems like Prodigy has kind of their naming convention, but then we've seen
Hmm.
some other tour series like Kale, obviously with his with the Falcor, and then we've seen Kevin Jones with his sound based ones. Are we going? Do you first of all, do you have a theme? Second of all, do you have? Are there going to be more of them?
Yeah, I would love to. I haven't really talked about plans for other discs coming out, but I'm sure that we will have that conversation sometime in the future. And I would say like the theme I have right now, I love books and I love reading. So the Archive was kind of like this, and you can kind of see it in the stamp, but like this, you know, book themed, just like knowledge based kind of uh, design. So I'll probably stick with something like that in the naming system and just kind of keep the theme going. But yeah, we'll
I,
see. We'll see what's coming down the road.
I love that. I really do. I truly think that's awesome. I can't wait for the Dewey Decimal to come out. The Isaac Robinson Dewey
Yes.
Decimal. It's going to be phenomenal.
Yes.
Um, you'll be able to find it everywhere. Um, we're talking about disc. We're talking about Prodigy. Am I right? Your contract with Prodigy through 2024 or through 2023 here?
Yes.
So another
2024.
full year. Okay, that's what I had thought. I wanted to
Hmm.
make sure that was because I thought I'd heard somebody else with some conflicting. But I believe last time we talked to you on Smashbox here that you had said that you did a 2-year agreement. So that's
Yep.
really really excited. Um, I don't have so you're actually I was going to say I don't have a lot more for you, but you're in PEI this weekend. You went up to
Yep.
Prince Edward Island. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to go up there because a lot of players are already they're all with not all of them, but a bunch of them are withdrawing. It's the week after Worlds.
Mhm.
I looked at your tour standings. Like I said, you're 6 points ahead of Gannon. You need to finish ninth or better to even pick up points, which I think the odds are pretty good that you're going to at least do that. What's driving you to go to the PEI?
Yeah, I mainly Prince Edward Island was just something I really wanted to see. Um, it's it's a place I haven't been. It's another place out of the country, so I can check that off the list. And then also, it just seems like a really cool place. I've kind of done some research and some I don't know if you know, but like the book series Anne of Green Gables, written on Prince Edward Island or written about it, and grew up reading those books, so I kind of just wanted to see what it looked like in person. And then also, the Silver Series here, um, it's just another tournament. I didn't have anything to do this week, so I figured I might as well just keep grinding, keep playing, and hopefully score a little bit more points to have some cushion at MVP when me and Gannon face off.
How great is it going to be, and how much are you going to rub it in Ganon's face if you beat him because of the Prince Edward Island um, match? Because, as you said, 6 points isn't much, but you could pick up another 20 or so here, depending on how you finish.
Mhm.
And then it's going to come down to Maple Hill, where it's a playoff event, and I believe is it 150 points to the
Yep.
winner, and or
Yep.
1.5 or something, or 1.25. I forget. There's so many different
Mhm.
ways the points go. But
Yeah.
do you guys have an overall bet on the season? You said competitively you do that, or do you have an overall one?
Yeah. So I think just the bet going on right now is we both, if the All Star event is happening again next year, the top two get to be captains. And Calvin's already solidified, and Gannon and I are head to head. We want that captain spot, and it's all it's quite the battle because not only do you get to pick the All Star team, but you kind of get that recognition, you get that uh, you know that little time in the spotlight, and so we both want it very badly, and we're both going to be just playing our hearts out at MVP.
Wow. So assuming Kelvin has one of the all-star spots, and let's just say you get the second one, who's your
Mhm.
pick? I mean, you
And
have assume you have everybody available to you. Let's just play pretend that Kelvin doesn't get the first pick, and you have everyone available to you. I mean, I guess it depends on what the course is. Maybe. I mean, you've got a lot of great players to choose from. Who do you pick? How do you pick?
yeah, yeah, I don't even know. There's so many good names in that list. I think AB would have to be vying for number one spot. He is just on a different level. Distance, putting. I mean, he's been on fire this year. So he would be my first pick, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and traditionally it is in Arizona. He's a hometown guy or home state guy,
Yep.
we'll say, and he tends to play relatively well there. So I guess that does make a lot of sense. Well, I guess the floor is yours, Isaac. I don't want to keep you too long. I know this is a shorter interview than we normally do here on Smashbox, but why don't you give your shout outs and your thanks? I see Alden Harris is on the board right now, probably. Um,
Oh no.
yeah, I know he's. They're coming up. Some of them are coming up with ideas for some of your other discs and whatnot, and some really good ideas out there. I'll let.
Sick.
I won't spoil it for you, but give us your thanks and everything, and talk about. Actually, before we do that, talk about how you feel like Worlds is going to change you. Not necessarily change you, but change your your career even, because it's a huge
Mhm.
title to have, and a lot. It
Yeah.
changed. And clearly, it changed Paul Macbeth's life. It's changed almost everybody
Mhm.
who's won the title. It's changed their life in some way. Like, how do you feel like it's going to change yours?
Yeah, I think it's just so much of a big win that it's I don't even know quite how it's going to change yet, but I'm looking for different sponsorship opportunities, secondary sponsors, stuff like that, and a world's title looks great on a resume. So um, kind of keeping my eyes open for options like that, and then also just I don't know, just kind of soaking it in and just the first thing I did was update the Instagram bio to two-time major champion, one-time world champion. And that was just so fun. Um, so it's just kind of I'm keeping my eyes open for opportunities and just kind of looking at what's ahead of me. Because like you said, it opens a bit of a bigger door to opportunities and sponsorships and stuff in the future. So looking forward to that.
And you're still obviously. I think this is kind of a silly question, but you're still focused on the U.S. title. You still want the
Mhm.
USDGC. You finished. I think in the top 10 maybe the last 2 years. I
Yep.
couldn't remember if it was just outside that 2 years ago, but um, I always feel that the USDGC is very, very forehand friendly. A lot of people have
Mhm.
called it the forehand Olympics. It's a lefty friendly course, and as we stated, not your comfort zone off the tee, but you always
Mhm.
seem to finish well. What are you going to do this year, other than probably practice to try to get that title and go 3 out of 4? Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna go in. I've heard they changed the course a lot. Um, that's the rumor going around at least. So I'm gonna figure out these new holes because I feel like I had the old holes pretty dialed in. So go figure out what they did and what they changed, and then also just kind of go in with not a overconfident mindset, but just a confident one. That I've been here. I've been in the I've won two majors now, and going into the third, it's there's a confidence, but not a cockiness. It's um,
no
I'm
one would
just kind
blame you
of
if it were a little cockiness. Not gonna lie.
yeah, but I think overall it would the cockiness would hurt the performance, but I think just just relax and just know what I'm capable of and bring my all to try to take down that. Going 3 out of 4 would be insane. So I'm
I,
trying hard.
I was very, and I think you maybe were even in there. I was very fortunate to be able to live through some of the Paul Macbeth era where he was just
Hmm.
unstoppable. The 2015 season is still
Yep,
burnt into my brain,
just
and to
crazy.
have someone
Yeah,
come
insane.
that close. I mean, you couldn't get dad's. It was dad's fault. We'll blame him. You couldn't get European
Yep,
Open,
it's his
but
fault.
ultimately, to get 3 out of 4. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lock for every award at the end of the season. That's a lock for PDGA Player
Hmm.
of the Year. That's a lock for every single um, uh, award that any podcast or any media company is going to hand out. So that's going to be you're going to
Yeah.
have a lot of nice little trophies to put on a mantle someday when you eventually have a house. So I think we talked to you last time about you were kind of looking at
Hmm.
at places, and this $30,000 paycheck is a really nice paycheck. That's a nice down payment on something.
Yes.
Is that what are you still looking? Did you find anything?
Yeah, I'm still looking. There's the housing market's a mess right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. But just kind of looking, yeah, looking around in Georgia and closer to my family, and haven't really nailed anything down yet. But yeah, just looking at housing, realtor sites like every day basically.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
I
Well, I
really
mean,
want to get a place to settle down.
there's literally 2 houses across the street from me. I've got a basket in my backyard. We can just throw back and forth. It would be
All right,
okay.
yeah, just back.
It's in Wisconsin, so winters are a little bit tougher than Georgia. But um, I, I
Yeah,
tell you
see,
what,
I'm not used to the snow like
yeah, if you move
that.
across the street, I'll snow blow and shovel your driveway for you.
All right, that sounds
Uh,
like a deal.
but yeah, that's you're right. The housing market is nuts because the houses across the street, they're not worth nearly what I feel like they're asking for them. So it is kind of
Yep.
crazy. I think if maybe you just wait maybe another 6 months, maybe next spring, things will start to settle down based on how things are
Yeah,
going.
that's what I'm
So,
thinking. That's
um,
what I'm thinking.
well, that's awesome, Isaac. And first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. It means a lot. After I'm sure you are swamped with media and everything. Has there been any strange, or I want to call them strange, but media requests that you didn't expect, like my local paper or something like that? Have you gotten any of those?
Not that I know of. I haven't quite finished going through all the messages yet. I'm working on it. I'm almost caught up, but I'm sure there's some weird, not some weird ones, but something like that hidden down deep in those DMs.
Okay. Nice, nice. So I'll give you the floor to thank all your sponsors, to thank whomever you'd like to thank before we let you go for the night, and the floor is yours.
Sweet. Yeah, obviously I just want to thank Prodigy Discs. They've been so great to work with this year. Just coming out with my new mid. The support is unparalleled. I want to thank 1010 Discs as well. Working with them has been a blast. They got some sick jerseys and some discs coming out, so keep an eye out for those. Double G Craft Jerky, the snacks on the course, clutch, always keeping me not hungry. And then also just want to thank my dad and thank my family and all the fans back in Georgia. Um, and across the nation as well. But my dad, I don't think I could have done it without him, especially that final round. Even the last two or three rounds. Uh, so huge help out there. Wouldn't have anybody else on the bag. Um, yeah, thank you guys.
Great. If you and remember, if everyone or anyone wants to go out, I'll say everyone go out and support Isaac. Go get one of those archives. It's first of all, it's a great name for a disc. Second of all, it supports World Champion. Be on the lookout for more Prodigy stuff coming out for World Champion Isaac Robinson and two-time Major Champion Isaac Robinson. I will say this, and I'll elaborate after you're off the air, but I truly think I look at a lot of people in that top 5 that I was rooting for, and I truly believe you are, I'd say, one or two of the best representatives to be a world champ I looked at, and that's kind of how I look at it, because I feel like Paul McBeth has been a phenomenal world champion. He's pushed the sport of disc golf further than anybody, and I was looking at other people who I think could really continue to spread the love of disc golf, and knowing and watching. I'm guilty. I'm an avid watcher of all the YouTube videos, and just what you guys are all doing. It just puts a smile on my face, because it kind of brings me back to a little bit like when Terry and I were on the road we weren't doing the full tour, but we did a lot of travel together, and I'm glad on one hand, I'm glad there weren't cameras and video cameras everywhere, but on the other hand, I do kind of miss it. So I think that of all the people that are up there, I think you're going to be one of the really, really good world champions. And I want to say thanks again for coming on the show tonight.
Of course, thank you for having me. Anytime.
Always. All right. Well, we'll book you for about another month. In a month, we'll get you, or maybe better yet, maybe we'll get your dad. Maybe that'll be a better grab.
Please. That would be. I would love to hear his thoughts.
Well, I guess my next question, or last question, USDGC round 5. If Ezra, I guess no, because Ezra's got his wife. If Ezra's beating you, it means his wife has been on the bag the whole time, and she's going to stay there.
Yeah.
Your dad, would it be? Would you love that, getting to play that with your brother, that final round? Is like with him?
Oh yeah.
Is that kind of something? I didn't know if it maybe
That would
there'd be
be
some weirdness or like competitiveness that you guys couldn't shake, but
No, I think we've played enough tournaments, together on league cards just growing up, C tiers and B tiers and stuff. I don't think it would be too weird. And it would be, if one of us ended up taking it down, it would just be another magical moment on the green. So win-win either way.
All right. That's great. That's great. All right, everybody. Once again, you're 2-time major champion, you're 1-time world champion, and maybe coming up 1-time US champion, Isaac Robinson.
I'll try.
Thanks a lot. Much appreciated. We will have yourself a good night and good luck this weekend at PEI.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. That was Isaac Robinson. What a great ambassador. Part of it, I know I kind of gushed just a little bit, but I truly had this conversation with a friend of mine tonight. He was telling me about his victory this past weekend up at one of my most favorite places in the world, which is Sandy Point. And he won the MP40 division. And so we were chatting about, I asked him whether he got a chance to watch it and watch the World Championships. And he said that they got to watch a lot of FPO, but their tee times were in the afternoon. And we were talking about World Champions and kind of the players that were in contention that we'd really like to see win. And I really did say that I think Isaac Robinson, of those players that were fighting, might be one of the best to win it based on what they can do with that World Championship. Because I think it's a great honor to be a world champion. It means you've put in a ton of effort and a ton of work. But I think once you become that world champion, there is extra, I don't say baggage, but there's something I feel that should go along with that, where you now become a much bigger representative of the sport. You have to go and do these media things. You're always known as a world champion. And I feel like there are some players that maybe, like, I don't know how, as much as I love Calvin and I really hope he wins, I hope he gets his major win just to get the monkey off of his back, whether that's Worlds or whatever. I feel like there are some players that maybe if they win, they're maybe not as socially minded or motivated as others. Like Calvin, I think he would do all the podcasts and he would do whatnot. And I think he'd be a good world champion. But I always want to see that player who puts in maybe a little extra effort like Paul did. I think, and again, maybe a little bit of gushing about Paul, about what he's been able to do with these world championships. I want to see our world champion really push and promote the sport. And I don't know how much that's in Kelvin, because I don't think he necessarily wants to do that. Whether he would or not, I don't know. But we all know Kelvin isn't the first to jump on social media. He's getting better. He's doing a lot of the other videos. He's joining, I think, I see him on some practice rounds with Brody more and more. We've always seen him on the skins, and he's got a great sense of humor. But I want to see our world champion really push the sport more and more. So, Citizen says, I want to see Maddie win so bad. Yeah, I think everybody does. It was really fun to see Maddie make a run at it again and again and again and again. And that guy just can't seem to. He is the most consistent, like 1040 to 1045 rated player, and unfortunately, he can't seem to get over that hump. Like I said, Isaac averaged 1057 here. You have to be hitting the 1060s, I think, to win a major. You have to. If you're not averaging 1060, you're not winning. So Matteo just doesn't seem to be able to hit that one extra gear for long enough. He's got it for a round or two. He just can't quite push through. So it's been 18 years and he's been battling. 18 years. I mean, Matteo's been podium at Worlds longer than most of you have probably been playing, longer than my kids have been alive. Just maybe he needs to pull back out that A-Rod jersey. Maybe that's his secret for a final round success. Get out the old A-Rod jersey and have a nice flashback. All right, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the people here on UDisc. We'll go through some of the other places. Obviously, as we said, Anthony, like Isaac had mentioned, Anthony Barella is playing like a man on fire. Just shooting a 12 under par the final round to really propel himself. He was on the chase card, but he was still tied for third going into that final round. Shooting a 12, birdieing the last 4 holes. It was fun to watch. Not gonna lie, I tuned in just I think hole 7 or 8 or something is when I tuned in to the final round. I was busy doing some other important stuff, blah blah blah. And so I got to watch and sit down as they started really kind of turning it on. And then I saw AB take a bogey, and I was like, oh well, that's it for him. But no, he came back and he followed up with a birdie, and then he got the eagle, and it was just what a pleasure to watch. That kid is special, hands down. He's a special talent, and I truly believe it's not long before he wins, not just an Elite Series event. I think he is going to be a major winner in the next 2 years. He plays so well. He throws so far. He just needs a little bit of control on his putts yet, because his putting game is just a little bit weak at times. Eagle McMahon was a huge story. He started out horribly. I think he was in, after the first round, he was like 170th place or something. And it's hard because there's pools and A cuts and B cuts. He never dipped down into the B pool, but he finished up that tournament with a 14 and a 13. So a course record 14, followed up by a 13. Fox Run is made for Eagle McMahon. Because like it or not, distance helps you, because it gives that next shot just that much. It makes it that much easier for an approach. And the only place where it really hurt him was hole 16, when he threw it too far and into the OB. And I know I saw some people complain about the OB long on that hole. I don't know why it's there on 16. Clearly, they want you to have a placement shot in the fairway in a particular spot. Because you go too far right, OB, you go too far left, OB, too far, OB. You need to be in about, probably a 25 by 50 foot spot in order to get the birdie. Maybe 70. Maybe you can do it in 70 feet. I guess it depends how far up and back. Because Eagle was right up on that OB line. He was able to throw a big spike hyzer and drop it in, to to get the par on 16, even after going OB. So Eagle's another player where, he's already got his major, he's got his Elite Series wins. He's just looking for that world championship now. I'm sure he wants other majors. I'm sure he wants to get the Champions Cup and he wants to get USDGC. We all know Worlds is where the most pressure is, and I think you put one more round possibly out on Fox Run, and Eagle might take this. I don't know. I mean, obviously Isaac was playing phenomenally, and he did bogey the last hole. Isaac did, but that was because he laid up. Let's be honest. He very well could have birdied it or easily parred it to walk away. But Eagle McMahon was just a man on fire as well. Again, tied for third place. Matty O, just Mr. Consistency over the last 18 years. Calvin Heimberg drops 2 places to take 5th. Nothing to shake a stick at. Nothing to be ashamed of. I know he's getting a reputation for not being able to show up at the majors, but honestly, his major finishes are fine. He's just not getting the win. He still shot a 10 under par. A 10 under par. He would have had to shoot a 16 in order to tie Isaac, which it's not realistic. You can't expect anyone to shoot a 16. I mean, you could ask Vinny why he didn't shoot better some of the other rounds, but I don't know. It's just nothing but love for Vinny in 5th place. 3-way tie for 6th place. The darn near brothers, Gannon Byrne, Alden Harris. Those guys tied at 41 under. Gannon shoots a 12 under. Alden shoots an 11 under. There were some scorching rounds out on Fox. I know there's been some talk about whether Fox Run is too easy, because we're seeing these double-digit rounds from a lot of players, as opposed to Brewster, where we did see a double-digit round, a few of them, I think, but a lot of guys were more in the 5 to 8 range. So is Fox Run too easy? I don't know. That's not my call. Birdies are fun. We like to see people throw birdies and eagles, but there's not a lot of, I don't say, shot shaping challenge on Fox Run. It's more of a distance. You got Brewster. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. I don't really have a take on it. But tied for 6th place with those 2 guys was Kyle Klein, another one of the young phenoms. He shot a 9 under. I'm not quite hitting those double digits, and he dropped 3 spots from 3rd down to 6th that final round. In 9th place, Chris Dickerson, who, again, was on an absolute heater earlier in the week, and just, I mean, some uncharacteristic putting, I think, on a few spots is what I saw for Chris Dickerson. Not sure what to say, but ends up finishing in 9th place. A good, respectable finish at Worlds. Worlds is the toughest place to finish, and Dickerson, who hasn't necessarily had the best season, still shot pretty well. And 10th place, James Proctor. James, who has had a pretty good season. A lot of people were picking him to podium this week because I think that the style of courses really maybe suits him. But unfortunately, just, he shoots a 13 this final round to jump up 7 places into 10th place. But just some earlier rounds really caused his, I think it was it the 4th round? I think it was the 4th round where he just didn't shoot well. So there's your top 10 for MPO. We're going to talk a little bit about FPO coming up, which is honestly a much shorter conversation, I think. Real quick, we'll talk a little bit more about MPO before we go to FPO. I'll just read off the board. Citizen says Greg won at 41 under in 2018, and the courses were supposedly harder, and 8 players were under -40 this. Yeah. I mean, that was pre-pandemic. Remember way back then? That was a long time ago. And I don't remember. I would have to go back and look at the course. Was it the same setup? Was it 2 at Brewster, 3 at Fox? I don't recall offhand the courses that we played for that particular Worlds. But yeah, Greg shot a great round, and the competition is better. We've got more players who are throwing further. I remember that particular Worlds, obviously doing the directing, and some of the phenomenal shots that Greg was throwing, the putts that were just arching into the basket as the way only Greg can do, and how it really felt like for him, Brewster, he was made for Brewster. That was his course. That he could just do no wrong there. It's just his disc had eyes, and he was just putting. It didn't matter where his putt was going because he was dropping it in. So, yeah. And Kevin says, and people are putting further. I agree with that too. We've got more good putters now than we did back then. I mean, just think of the players that were on the lead card that tailed off. I mean, we had Grady Shue winning after round 2. You know, he got on the lead card and he laid an egg. But then comes back. Was it top 20? I'm going to go back and look now. I think he was in, like, did he finish in 19th or 17th? 17th place Grady Shue finished. Shooting a 10 down on Fox. So really it was, you know, the pressure. That's tough. And he handled it like a champ. You know, Grady Shue is a stellar human being and just awesome. It'd be hard not to talk about Paul McBeth missing out on his streak. 10 full years, a solid decade of Paul being in the top 2. And he drops down to 13th. He dropped 3 spots that final round, only shooting a 6 under, which, as we can tell, because everybody in front of him shot better. Every single person shot better than Paul McBeth ahead of him. You know, not that Paul was, you know, destined to win, or even could win on that final round. Paul was out of it after his 4th round. And I think everybody kind of knew it, which is crazy to think about a decade of Paul McBeth. I've fortunate that I've got to witness him literally from Am Worlds when he was here in 2008, going up against Greg Schwartz, not winning that either, taking 2nd place. Seeing him and knowing that he was a special player. At the time, I didn't know how special he was, but you could just tell he was a phenomenal player. And then to see his progression over the last decade. And I'm not writing any obituaries for Paul McBeth because I know he is a little bit dinged up right now, but that's no excuse. You're out there on the course. If you're on the course, you got to play. I mean, I think you could see it in his putts. His putting didn't look the same as how he used to putt. It looked a little bit more robotic, maybe. His arm swing just looked and felt a little different. Maybe I'm just imagining that. I don't know. And he's got a kid on the way. And I think this is his last event of the year, he said. He won't be playing USDGC. He won't be playing the Pro Tour finale. I think he's just going to heal up, have a baby. Not him personally, but Hannah will. Shout outs to Hannah. Having a baby is tougher than winning any disc golf event. So shout out to Hannah. But just spend some time with the family for a few months. Probably play some leagues, heal up, putt in his backyard, enjoy Florida for a couple months. Maybe play a couple in the off season. Maybe play a couple events local to Florida. But ultimately, Paul McBeth ending his decade-long streak of taking top 2, dropping down to 13th. The other person that we saw who was in first place, who ended up kind of falling off, was Cole Redalin, and he ended up in 22nd. Cole just, again, he got onto the top of the card, and just you could see it. He kind of crumbled. Not gonna lie. I think he's got a lot to learn. These are pressure-packed rounds, and you need to be able to really, really focus and handle yourself. And I don't think he was able to do that. You saw some of the poor execution that he doesn't normally throw like that. And again, Cole's another guy where I'm not as confident that he's going to absolutely win a major, but I think he definitely has the skills. Just whether or not he can really focus and put them together. He seems like he's a shoe-in at some point, but I don't know. We can always hope. I'm going to give a look out on the board here. We're going to, once I find where my mouse is, there it is. It's hiding on me. Um, Dustin says about Paul, apparently the shoulder is more about the lifting up of the shoulder in the putting motion, not an issue as it's not the same shoulder lifting motion. Okay, so yeah, it's just the way he's putting and bringing his arm. It didn't look like Paul. That's what I'll say. So let's move over to the FPO division, and this was over after the first round. It was more over after the second round. And I know Missy Gannon came back, but Kristen Tatar mentally and physically had this under control virtually the entire tournament. She talked about, I believe it was the third after the third round, that she had some bad breaks, and then the fourth round, Missy had a few good kicks and rolls, which is going to happen on these courses. I'm not, I would in no way am I saying that that's why Missy took second place as opposed to third or fourth, because Missy shot phenomenal golf. She averaged, or going into that final round, I think she was averaging 997 golf or something, or just right around 1,000 basically, which would have won her any other worlds other than last year and clearly this year. But Kristen Tatar coming out with the first two rounds, averaging like 1030. How ridiculous is that? Averaging 1030 golf. And I really feel like Missy truly lost this at the end of the fourth round. That whole 18. She had such momentum going into that. And if she could have gone into the fifth and final round only down a stroke, as opposed to down, what was it, 5 strokes? I think it was 5 strokes. That's really where she lost it. It's unfortunate. Because you could imagine a scenario, and again, it takes a little imagination, because it's probably not likely, of Kristen Tatar, the final round, with only 1 stroke advantage, getting a little shaky. We saw it at the European Open. Obviously, she had, there was a lot. It was a different scenario with the European, or not the European Open, I'm sorry, but the European Championships. Slightly different scenario here and there, but there is a scenario that runs in my head that Missy, shows up to the final round only down a stroke, doesn't have to press maybe quite as hard, and comes out and starts maybe putting a little bit of pressure on KT. And Tatar isn't the type of player. She's mentally strong. She's a great champion. She's mentally strong. So it's a little bit of a stretch to think that maybe she could have let that get to her. But going in with 4 or 5 strokes, 5 strokes, yeah, it was officially 5, that's right. Going in with 5 strokes, it wasn't there. And then Missy bogeying the first hole off the bat, just Tatar could kind of mentally put it into cruise control. She didn't really have to worry about anything. And obviously, even with the final hole where she took a double bogey, because I think she went OB, and then I think she laid up twice, whatever, just to get close. She's a 2-time world champ for a reason, Kristen Tatar. And I was talking to Mo about this, and I said, get used to it. She ain't going anywhere for like 3 years, at least. Like, it wouldn't shock me if in the next 3 years she wins more than half of the majors, at least 2 a year. At least, Missy was as close to catching her as it felt like anyone could be, and it was still 6, I'm going to put that in quotes, strokes after 5 rounds. I just think that Tatar has hit another level in FPO division. We talked about this years ago, where I said the next step for FPO was going to be a player who could throw a pretty good distance like she does and putt. And that's what Tatar is doing. Tatar is lights out. And of course, it's a lot of her approach game. She is deadly accurate with her approach game, but also her putts. Those 30 to 40 foot putts, she's hitting those probably more than almost any other player other than maybe Owen Scoggins. But man, I don't see how anyone touches Kristen Tatar over the next couple years. We need another group of players to come up that can throw far and putt. You have your Haley Kings, who I think has an extremely high ceiling, but for whatever reason doesn't, and this is obviously just on the outside looking in, it doesn't feel like she has the same competitive drive that someone like Kristen Tatar has. Because you can see when Kristen Tatar is not shooting well, it almost physically hurts her. You saw so many times when she had on that final round, especially on that back nine, when she has a commanding lead, she throws a poor shot, and you could physically see she was frustrated. Most of the other players, when they are in that position, they're probably shaking it off, or, hey, I've got 6 strokes, I'm going to smile about it. Yeah, I threw a bad shot. Well, but not Kristen Tatar. She is driven. So you've got your, Ella Hansen and Holland Hanley, who have the distance to compete with Tatar, but don't have the putting. And maybe that'll change. They're both relatively young to the sport. They're younger to the sport than Kristen Tatar is, and younger age-wise. So maybe they focus a lot on their putting in the offseason and really try to hone that in to get to be, 80, 85, maybe, get up there to those circle one putts, because that's what you can't, if you want to beat Kristen Tatar, you can't miss circle one putts ever. If someone like Holland or Ella or even Missy probably went through a 4 to 5 round tournament and only missed 2 to 3 circle one putts, they would probably beat Kristen Tatar. But that's just not happening. Everyone's hope was that Owen was going to step up, and she had to withdraw with an injury. She had something between her on her forearm to her elbow, or it was like something in the wrist area, I believe is what it was, where she just couldn't, and it was a sad story. You saw that after round 1 when she was hugging, they walked off a green, and she went up to Kristen, and Kristen gave her a hug. It showed some compassion. Kristen is prone to do. She's a great competitor and a good human. And you could see how Owen didn't want to withdraw, because she just, this could be her best chance to win a Worlds, because as much as I think Owen is not going anywhere for a few years, she's not getting any younger. She's not really picking up any distance. So a lot of the women in the sport are catching her in other ways. But obviously we were all happy to see Owen get her elite win. So second place, as I said, Missy Gannon, who just couldn't catch her on the final day. There was nothing she could do, even after she rattled off 5 in a row. There was no worries in Tatar. None. Third place, Holland Hanley, shooting 14 under. A good showing for Holland. I think, again, she's got a lot of room for improvement in just golf game, just playing better disc golf, so to speak. Maybe a little less aggressive at times, just a little bit better putting. And I think Holland is, she's going to get that. She'll probably get a major in her time, but she'll definitely pull in an elite series probably in the next 2 years. And maybe not surprising, but kind of, fourth place, Evelina Salonen. If you looked at last year's Worlds results, the only difference was Paige Pierce was in the top 5. Now, obviously, Paige not being here, she's injured with her, her leg injury. But you would not have, last year, if you looked at, said next year Worlds, cool, I could see a very similar result, Evelina. But suddenly, sometime between the end of last season and early this season, we all saw Evelina's putting challenges. So for her, and she's not through the woods on that yet, but her putt looks so much better. She looks so much more confident. And I really love the comeback story with Evelina on fighting through some of those mental challenges to get to where she is. And she was she shot 9 under, Tatar shot 26 under. We're talking about literally a 17 stroke difference. But I think Evelina should be, and hopefully is, very happy with her fourth place finish. And it's something she can build on. Her confidence and, still continue to work on the putting. She still misses a couple of those short ones. She went through the same thing that Trina Allen went through a couple of years ago, where you feel more confident with Evelina from like 40 than you do from 14. But congratulations to Evelina. Not behind her, tied with her best friend, Henna Blomroos. Henna still can throw the disc as well as anybody on the course, and it's putting that's holding her back as well. Sixth place, kind of a newer name. I mean, if you've been paying attention to Europeans, or even some of the Disc Golf Pro Tour this year, you've heard of Silva Sarnen, and she showed some phenomenal potential, shooting a 7 under par that final round, tied with Holland Hanley. Silva moved up 3 spots, but she was always in the conversation this week. It's really good to see another player with this type of talent being so young. I mean, I think she's 20. She just turned 20 years old. So she's just a hair younger than Evelina and Henna. I mean, like it or not, for what the MPO lacks in the European finishers, the FPO is more than making up for. So congratulations to Silva Sarnen, a name that we are going to kind of keep an eye on for the next few years. 7th place, Macy Velladia is shooting a 7 under, jumping up 5 spots, tied with Valerie Mondahano, who moved up 1 spot with a 4. Allie Smith getting the ace on round 4. What a great shot, and what a great reaction, sprinting down. Again, this year I got to cut the FPO show instead of the MPO show. It's the first time I've not cut the MPO show in the last last 7 years. We missed a year because at the time in Georgia, when it was at the IDGC and not the fort that we know, but I think it was Fort Jackson. I believe that's the name of the course. There was 0 cell coverage at the time, and we weren't working with the same equipment that the Pro Tour has access to now, and blah, blah, blah. So we skipped that one. We did post-production there. But I much more enjoyed cutting the FPO this year. But Allie Smith getting that ace, and what a great move. I was sitting here and I was watching it, and she, we hear it on another card, and we immediately go to it. It's not even, we literally, I think, cut away from a player, which we rarely do. If we're watching someone about to throw, we usually stick with them. It's like, all right, we're here. Let's watch them. It doesn't matter. But with something like that, we cut away because we knew how awesome it was. And she threw that DGA sail, as she said, on a perfect anhyzer, and it just slammed the chains. So that was a great thing. And she maintained that final round. So Allie Smith is another really good, consistent golfer. I would love to see if she could add a little bit of distance. She's a pretty okay putter. But I think she can do, obviously, as I think a lot of these women understand and know, they can all do a little bit better. And there's spots in everyone's game, including Kristen Tatar's, that can improve. In 7th place, one of my favorite, I had goosebumps when she hit it. Luque Lorenzen on that final hole 18, hitting that 40-footer, 50-footer, whatever it was. I could probably look. It probably says here on UDisc, if I open that up. It's a 60-footer. I'm sorry. Hitting that 60-footer to save her 5. And just the emotion, the reaction that came out of her, you could see how important that was to her. And to be honest, it didn't really matter score-wise, placement-wise. She had 5 strokes on Tate. But you could tell that it was just something that finished. The highest Norwegian finisher in world's history in 7th place. And that's pretty much your top 10 for FPO. I'm going to check the board here because I want to watch, see if there's any questions. Citizen says the Europeans will dominate. Yeah, it's hard not to say that. You know, you've got Missy. Missy's in her early 30s, 34, I want to say. Maybe she's 35. I don't know. I'm not out here about to guess. Even though I guess I already did. But I don't see Missy putting on too much more distance. You know, she did gain distance this year, it looks like, and but I feel like Missy has kind of hit her plateau where she's going to have. I just, it's hard for me to see Missy popping off like a 10-30 rated round like Tatar does. 10-10, 10-15. If she can do that consistently, she's going to win a lot of events. But it's tough when Kristen Tatar is popping off a 10-30 and a 10-30 in a tournament. Like, just no one has a higher ceiling than Kristen Tatar, it feels like. Well, I guess that's not true. Kristen Tatar, I feel like, has the highest consistency level. I think there are players that maybe have a slightly higher ceiling when everything is firing. Like, I kind of feel Paige Pierce is that way. If everything is going right for Paige Pierce, she could shoot a 10-40 or 10-50 rated round. You know, if Haley King is the same way, if everything is going right for Haley, if her putting is on and she can drive the disc so well, like, but the problem is both of those players will follow up that 10-40 round with a 980, which is still good. I'd love to be shooting 980 rated rounds, to be honest, but it's not going to win. It unfortunately doesn't win you events. Not when you've got someone like Tatar who's almost averaging 1,000 the entire tournament. So, but I do think the Europeans are going to dominate. You're going to see them come over here hopefully next year, and you know, whether it's Luque, whether it's Tate, Evelina, Henna, obviously Tatar, Silva. There's so many good players, and I think you're going to see them in the top 10 quite a bit, and mixed in with some of our more popular US-based FPO players. It's crazy. I'm scrolling up here, a couple guys here saying Silva is legit. Yeah, I think she could probably put on a little distance, but it's not like she's got such a good game, and when it's on for her. So let's see here. Anyone else? Yeah. As far as getting to 1,000 for Kristen Tatar, there was talk, and again, it's just kind of talk about some people are trying to figure out ratings and stuff, that she had to average 10-10 her last 3 rounds after the 2 10-30s, I believe is what it was. Something like that. She had to average 10-10 for those last couple rounds in order to hit 1,000. She might come up just short. She might hit, I think her rating's going to go up 998, 999. Maybe she still pushes 1,000. I don't know. I guess that could, there's, anything's possible. You know, if her rating is 999.2, does the PDGA just like, what does that work? Do they bump it up to 1,000 or they bump it down? I don't know how I don't know where they round to. Is it always rounding up? I don't know. Or do they abide by math? I don't know. I've never asked. So, but yeah, KT Tatar is definitely going to be at least 997, maybe even 998. We'll see what happens. Dust says, I think Missy is getting better, to be honest. She still doesn't have the forehand game. Yeah, she doesn't, and I don't see her getting it. Like, at her age, many years younger than me, I just don't see her putting in a lot of effort to get that really consistent forehand. I don't know if she sees, it's kind of, to put myself in my shoes, it's kind of how I feel right now about my forehand. Like, I go up back in my backyard. I'm fortunate to have kind of a spot where I can throw little forehand putters. I practice a little bit. I'm not throwing putters off a tee. I'm sorry, I'm not throwing forehand off a tee. It's just not, at my age, I just feel like it's not worth my time. And I'm not a professional disc golfer. I'm not on tour. Maybe Missy is going to prove me wrong, and she's going to go out this off season and just sit and, you know, hammer down forehands until she has a good, consistent 300-foot forehand. I don't know. But it seems like she's really happy with her backhand turnover. And for the most part, it's really good. Just kind of bitter on hole 18 at the worst time. So Dust asks, how are the Europeans going to dominate when Henna and Evelina can't putt? I think you're a little too harsh on that. I think Evelina is pushing through that, and we saw her get better. You know, she only missed a handful of jaw droppers this weekend where you're like, wow, I didn't expect you to miss that. But she looked really good on the putting green, I thought. Henna, not as much. Henna still has kind of a few more of those shake your head putts. But the way I look at it, if Trina Allen can get through it, if Evelina can push through this, there's no reason why Henna can't. And Henna is one of the best throwers of the disc off the tee. We've seen it. I don't know. I'm not putting anything past the European women. I think they've got a lot of talent, and it's not like putting is really the thing that pushes your game in FPO yet. We see Owen Scoggins, who regularly throws 50 to 100 feet shorter than these women, getting it done on the putting green. And her and kind of a little bit Missy and Tatar are really the ones that are dominating the putting game. So there's still a lot of room for growth there. Citizen says the ratings deal is total BS and needs to just disappear. No one cares. I disagree with that. I think that as for the MPO, and I'm glad Terry's not here to do his internet voice or his ratings thing, that everyone says they don't care, but yet they're always the first to post and blah, 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 blah. Whatever. I'll do my Terry there for a second. I think people do care about their rating, and it is a relatively good measure when you have the right scenario. It's a good measure of how you play. And on a certain course, obviously it adjusts for weather. We've seen that that there are times it can be skewed. Look at Manabu, who was the highest rated player in the world because he was high rated, and he truly was a 1030 to 1040 rated golfer years ago. But then he's in Japan where, because of the way the ratings work, and he's always winning because he's that much better than the other guys, and the quality of competition is not great in Japan, that I believe that the way the ratings works, it just kind of held him there. And we've seen that when he comes over here, he's not performing well. And I don't want to write it all off because I know he's shooting like 980, 990 golf. It's difficult to come overseas and play. Like, I've seen Manabu play. The guy can throw a disc very well. I truly think he's probably a 1020 rated golfer. But he's definitely not a 1050 rated golfer. I'll say that. And that's no disrespect to Manabu, because I don't want to say I've talked with him. I've said hi to him. I've shook his hand at the Japan Open many years ago. But very nice guy. So it's just it's a nature of where he's at. And I don't think he really ever touted himself as like, I'm the number one rated player. It's a figures game. Let's see here. Anything else on the board? Tim Court says, when I throw forehands, I warn everyone on my card that their life is in danger. Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Not so much behind me, although it's probably wouldn't be outrageous, but more so anywhere from about 10 to 2 o'clock in front of me. That's really where I could spray it. Not gonna lie. Do not have accuracy with forehand. Evelina was 43rd in C1X. Yeah. Like, again, she missed putts, but she was dead last years ago. Dead last. And now she's 43rd. She's moving up. Again, she missed putts, but they weren't It was a lot of them were hitting band. They weren't like the, oh my God, how did you miss the basket putt for the most part. There were still a few of those. I'm not going to lie, but there were less of them. So I've got faith. I've got faith in Evelina. And look how good she drove if she was still in fourth place for putting that poorly. So reading through the board, Dustin saying, yeah, Manabu proved a flaw in the ratings. Yeah, there's, again, I don't exactly know how it goes. I've heard that like there's a pool of all the ratings that the people have, and it's kind of manipulated. So if there's 10,000 total points in the pool, that's kind of how they get distributed. But not really, because there's different ways it can flux. But that's just the way it worked out for Manabu. So, yeah, he averaged 974 at Worlds. Again, these are different courses, a completely different style of courses than he's used to playing. Different distances, different and the guy throws pretty well, but it's different. And I think he is a better golfer than the 974. So, yeah, there you go, Dust. Go to Japan, see if you can break 900. Could happen. Maybe you get 1,000 there, and then get on the tour, and everyone would laugh. What do we think is going on with Kat's game? I think she has a wrench in the gears. I think she's just having a mental problem. And not like go see a doctor mental problem. I think it's an on the course issue. I think she's having an issue with her form. I think she maybe there's a little injury there she's not talking about. We saw this earlier in the year where suddenly her drive just looked off. And she tried to fix it, and she thought she fixed it. And it has been an issue. And maybe this is, I've had a theory going way back about the FPO field. And it's not always this way, but in the past, when we've seen a new dominant FPO player, the previous dominant FPO player tends to fall off very quickly. We did not see it when Elaine King and JK. Elaine King continued to play, continued to win, lots of wins. When JK came on the scene, but when Des started beating JK, Corver suddenly developed a weird putting issue. She couldn't hit the basket, and I don't know if that was clearly it had to be mental. It just did. There's nothing physically wrong with her, and Corver kind of just very quickly kind of went off the tour after Des started winning, and then we saw Val step up. And Des was hit with injuries. And she kind of tailed off really quickly, mostly probably due to injuries. I know she had a hip issue for a while that caused her issues, but very quickly, suddenly Des wasn't even in the conversation after Val showed up. And this is where, obviously, my shenanigans kind of fall apart. Because Val still maintained some dominance through the Paige Pierce era. Of the first 5 years, Val was right there at Worlds. She was usually top 2 or 3, if not winning one. And Kat showed up. And then it was kind of the Paige Pierce show. And Val went off and did her thing. And congratulations on Luca. I know I wasn't around last week to say it, but way to go. Thumbs up. Great baby. And I don't know if we're seeing it again with KT. Now that she's shown up, is Kat going to be is the pressure on her to try to compete too much? Is she going to mentally kind of just fade away? Because physically, she should have all the abilities. Maybe she's hurt. Maybe she just can't figure something out in her game, and it just is causing that much issue. Paige Pierce obviously hurt with her leg. I think Paige is going to come back, probably be a top 5 golfer for another couple of years. But I don't know. I would love to see a season where we have KT at the top of her game, Paige Pierce at the top of her game, Katrina Allen at the top of her game. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. Between age and pressure and all these other things, I don't know if we'll see that. And all these young kids that are coming up and just, they're all throwing far. It used to be, Val threw kind of far. And then Paige showed up and just Paige crushed. And then Kat showed up and Kat crushed. And Val was consistent. She was kind of like Owen Scoggins compared to KT, where Val she wasn't out driving these women, but she was getting up and down, getting nearby, and putting it in the basket for her putting. That's what she did. She won world championships that way. I don't know. The good thing is the FPO field is so much deeper now. We have so many more competitors. We've got a lot of Europeans now that are showing up and a lot of US players that are just starting to compete and compete at a high level. I have a lot of faith in Ella Hansen. I have a lot of faith in Holland Hanley, Macy Valadiaz. These are women who, Haley King, who have potential to move. And it all depends on their drive. It all depends on their want of it. Because I think if you want to beat KT, there's no off season. There is practice season and there is event season. There is no relaxing. There is no, the season's over. I can take a few months off and not pick up a disc. I can take, 2 months off and just chill. Not if you want to beat KT next year. You should be on that putting green and driving range every single day. And that's easy for me to say because I'm sitting my ass in this chair and I don't have to do it because I couldn't. But if you want to beat her, you have to. If you want a chance to compete, if you don't want to continue to take 2nd through 5th, you have to do that. And it's the same thing we said about Paul when Paul was dominant. And Paul took it more seriously than any other player up until that point. Paul was hitting the gym. Paul was out on that practice green every single day. He was making videos about it. He was doing it. And the other guys at the time, most of them weren't. It was a game, not a sport. Well, now we see the MPO players taking it more seriously. They are out there practicing. They are getting in shape and being, athletes. And I hope the FPO division really follows suit. It might be a few years. I don't know. But you've got, again, Holland Hanley, who is a very athletic woman. These videos and probably putting or hopefully driving every day. But again, no off season, just practice season. So Citizen says less than 1% are elite and the rest can have good weeks and win. I don't know. Maybe. Ray asks, am I switching for any other events this season? Let's bring the subject back to something that matters. Me. Yeah, I'm doing USDGC as well. I'll be switching for the USDGC. I don't know MPO or FPO. I don't know if it's technically the throw pink versus USDGC. I'm just kind of bundling all that as USDGC week. So I don't know which one I'm doing. Probably USDGC. In general, Ian has always really liked to do the FPO side of the sport. That's where his interests lie more. And me, I don't care either way. My interests lie in the tech, and I love watching the golf. But it was really actually worked out really well for me this week because I had a bunch of afternoon, a week and a half ago, Ian asked me if I could, he's like, oh man, I'm on the West Coast. And so I would have to get up at 3 in the morning in order to do switching and then go from 3 till 8 or 9. And that kind of wrecks my whole day because then I want to sleep and whatever. He's like, could you, if you only have to get up at 6:30, could you do FPO? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's great. And then we had to get up early on the second day and I had to get my ass up at 5 in the morning so I could finish the MPO round. So Ian, you owe me. No, I'm just teasing. But yeah, I'll be doing USDGC, throw pink or USDGC, probably USDGC. But if Ian feels like he doesn't want to get up way early in the morning for that as well, I'll do throw pink. I don't care. It's all the same to me. It's pushing buttons, listening to Mo, and calling cameras. So whatever works for me. Citizen says he practiced more than anyone he knew at golf and still couldn't win. He loved putting till dark. Yeah, it's not in everybody. I could do the same thing. I could I could literally quit my job, play disc golf for the next 3 years every single day. And unfortunately, I probably could not compete on the pro tour. Even in my prime in quotes. Like if I would have taken the sport more seriously. It's just it's not in some people. Some people just can't do it. Fortunately, we're seeing less and less of those people on tour and more of the actual people who can on tour. Alfred asks, where is Elaine King? I don't know, Georgia? I think that's where she lives. I think she's still doing stuff for the PDGA. She just hasn't been on DGN this year. I think with all the stuff that happened last year at Champions Cup, I think it was just better for maybe both parties rather than draw any interest. Even though, again, I stand by Elaine King. She truly was not doing anything malicious with what she did. She was truly concerned about, someone being penalized for something they shouldn't. Whatever hot take you have on Elaine King, that's fine. But I think it was just better that to take the focus off of it and have Elaine just not do DGN. And we have, we've got people like Zoe and I think Hokum's going to kind of start stepping into the role a little bit maybe next year. I know she kind of dipped her toes in a little bit. We've got, and Val, now that Val's coming through, we have our FPO commentators. Juliana Korver, I think she said next year she's going to be stepping into the booth more if she has her way. And I think that's good. I don't necessarily think we need Elaine. I had no problem with her, but I don't think we need her. If she were to do it again, I think I would be welcome her with open arms. So there was a lot of talk this week about, and I think it mainly stemmed from Brody on Twitter, talking about the FPO commentary, whether we're too soft on them, whether Zoe's too soft on them. It's a tough position to be in because Zoe is a naturally positive person. And again, to meet Zoe is to love Zoe. She's phenomenal. Does she sometimes glaze over poor shots with maybe a little flowery language? Maybe. Could she stand to be maybe a little bit more, I don't say ruthless, but critical of players? Maybe. I don't necessarily think we have to. I don't think there's any rule that says you have to be, mean or, I don't want to say honest, but maybe ruthlessly honest. I don't think you need that. I mean, there is room for that. Our sport has different personalities and different people can commentate different ways. I have a hard time, again, getting behind almost any criticism of commentary. Would it bother me if Zoe was a little bit more harsh with her commentary? Not at all. She could be, or she can continue to be, Zoe. That's Juliana Korver. I think she's phenomenal in the booth, but she could probably stand to be a little bit more excited. I think she's a very buttoned up professional commentator, but she's also the color commentator. And I think maybe she has to, for JK, she maybe kind of has to get a little bit more excited at times because in my idea, it's the play-by-play person to be a little bit more cadenced. Whereas if JK could afford to be, a little bit more excitable, I think she's really good at what she does. I think everybody has flaws in the booth, men and women. I'm not going to sit and go through all of them, but I have my opinions. I'm sure everyone out there has their opinions. I think, there's somebody on the board here, but out on one of the Reddits, I think, was complaining they thought Terry was the worst on-course interviewer that we have, which I find laughable. And I know my biases because I think Terry's the best on-course interviewer we have. I think Terry could stand to be a little bit more buttoned up in the booth. I think he likes he's a little bit too lax at times for me. I think he does a great job. And then there's like 5% of the time where he makes a stupid dad joke. And I think it's funny. I don't necessarily think everybody thinks it's funny. But again, I don't think we need to emulate any particular sport. Li- go out and listen to your local AM radio baseball game, and they've got a lot of time to fill. You hear him talking about like I grew up here with Bob Euchre. Bob would just go off. He'd be talking about anything and everything. I was watching college football. Lord knows why. I went to turn on the evening news, the 10 o'clock news the other night, and some football game was on, and they were literally, I think they were like highlighting. They were like circling guys' jerseys or something. They were just fooling around. And then the next, I think it was Saturday morning football, one of the announcers jumped off a boat into some water and he split his pants. So they freeze framed it and they circled the split in his pants. Like, these guys are having fun. Like, there's no reason why our commentators need to be completely buttoned up and professional. I just think it's a really silly thing to be shooting for and to complain about if someone is in the commentating booth and they're having fun. Everybody's got a different style. I find it so hard to care. I find it so hard to hate on commentators, I guess is what I'll say. But I read it. I read a lot of it. So. Citizen says, I heard people crying about Philo being too slang. I love Philo's slang. I love his, whatever funny terms he comes up with, his knurl. Like, I don't even know. Is that KNURL? Is that like on the knurl on like a screwdriver or something? Is that GNURL, ERL, NERL? I don't know. But Philo's got a lot of fun terms. The only criticism from this weekend I had of Philo was calling out Mrs. Robinson with the Beatles. Like, I think someone in the booth or someone in the control room immediately checked him on that. I was like, no, dude, you're wrong. That's Simon and Garfunkel. Because he came back real quick. He took the big goose egg on that one. And he said it so just, I can get it. Like, it flows off, and he probably didn't even think about it. And then someone in the booth or someone in the control room probably was in his ear. It was like, Philo, that's Mrs. Robinson isn't the Beatles. It is Simon and Garfunkel, which Philo probably knew. He just probably said it and never thought about it again. And that's what made right away. I immediately started laughing. I was like, "Oh, that was a big fat L on Philo's face right there." Everyone makes mistakes, so. And Philo's a music guy. If you know him, he plays piano, he plays guitar. He's a pretty good when it comes to music knowledge. So I truly believe he probably did know that and just spit out the wrong one and never thought about it. So. Yes, you're right. Philo was half right because Cuckoo Cuckoo Mrs. Robinson was Simon and Garfunkel, but the original Cuckoo Cuckoo is the Beatles. So you're right when he said that. He just twisted them. Carney's complaining on the board about commentators talking about what they're actually seeing. Like, oh, we hit a little low on the cage. I'm not gonna lie, and I know sometimes I don't know if I'm unique in this. I'm not always watching. Sometimes if I need to run errands, I'll throw it on my phone, put my headphones on in my pocket, and just toss the phone in my pocket or on the seat. And I'm not watching. I'm listening. So to get some of that isn't the worst for me. I don't mind it if the commentator sometimes, and I don't, there's a balance. I don't want it all the time, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that just listens. And I know I'm not, because I've had, back in the day, even up until recently, someone this year messaged me and said, thinking I still have a lot of control over the broadcast, which I don't, was like, hey man, I would really love it if we had an audio only version that, where the guys could just tell us what was going on, like kind of like a radio thing. Because I can't watch, but I'd really love to just listen. And all I thought was like, you're few and far between. There's probably, if there were 20,000 people or 30,000 people that watched this weekend, I don't know the numbers. I think Mo mentioned them in some forum, but I don't know offhand. I know it was like a 10% increase over last year. If there's, let's just say 20,000 people that are watching, there's probably about 100 that would care about an audio only broadcast. That's the way it's always been. percent of a percent. So there's just no drive in it. So when they mention that, I care about that a little less, just because I'm not sitting and staring at the TV all the time. Now, when it gets towards the middle to the end of the round, I'm right there watching, and I could see how that could be annoying to some people. So, Three Putt says, "What's a ham bone?" I hear Philo say it all the time, and I think Ian actually brought the term into disc golf. A ham bone is in bowling. Someone made up in bowling years ago that the turkey is 3 in a row, which comes from bowling. 4 in a row is the ham bone, which as well comes from bowling. I don't believe it is an ultimate official term, but I don't think turkey is an official term in bowling. I think just everybody uses it. I bet you turkey isn't anywhere in their rule book. But everyone knows 3 in a row is a turkey. Why a turkey? I don't know. Why not a pigeon? The hell out of me. But 4, someone came up with as a ham bone. And so Ian, I think, brought that into disc golf. Just like you hear 5 in a row now, I think the Upshot or something started dubbing it as the Yahtzee. And I don't know if Philo picked up on that. I don't know where he got it, if he got it from Charlie and those guys. But they're starting to call 5 birdies in a row a Yahtzee. I don't know. 6? Is that a 6-pack? No, what's a good, what's something that comes in 7s? Because we're seeing these players more and more rack up. Are we, is 9 a turkey? Because it's a 3 turkeys? I don't know. It's just made up slang that people are, I don't want to say every commentator, but it's kind of fun to know that as a commentator, you can set the jargon for the sport. If Philo says it enough, you're going to start hearing it on your local course. If you're sitting at league and you throw a disc and it hits and it kind of curls around and someone says, "Oh yeah, that just knurled over there," it's going to catch on. It just does. That's the one of the powers of being in front of this camera, is you get to you can kind of make those things a thing if it's catchy enough. Philo has a lot of them. Philo needs to call the T-pad the slab. Someone else did that, right? Was that the Goog? Was that the Goog from the Eagles? Was it Eagles Crossing or whatever it is? Was he called it the slab? Citizen says 10 is a fat lady or a skinny guy, or vice versa. I don't get that. 8 is I don't like 8 as a snowman, because we use snowman as a score for 8. If you take an 8, that's a snowman. I wouldn't use snowman as 8 birdies in a row, because I think that would be confusing. Why is it? I could see 9 as a hangman, although I could also see there being a little, and maybe I'm just being too woke, a woke millennial or something, too sensitive, which no one's ever accused me of before in my life. But I could see someone finding a little bit of offense to referencing like a suicide or a hanging, like for 9 as a hangman. I could see someone being upset about that. I mean, for crying out loud, we hear people be upset at the DD disc names because they were law enforcement related. Like, you're gonna find someone that's offended at everything. So is 9 being called a hangman? Is that more or less than the slammer or what, the judge or whatever it is? I don't know. I tend not to be offended easily, but I could see how someone would. So Ryan says, Ryan Pilcher says, I keep forgetting about on the slab. That's gold, Jerry. Gold. John Madelone asks, why are there pavers on Brewster? I don't know. Maybe because they couldn't. Maybe it was easier at the time when it was built to get pavers out into the woods than it would be for concrete, and trying to haul it in a wheelbarrow. Maybe it's easier to get crushed. You could bring wheelbarrows of crushed stone and then these pavers and put them down. I don't know. That's a great question. But we could make something up. We could make up a reason. My reason sounds as good as any, even though it's not based in any fact, which is a lot like this podcast. Ray says that the GK Pro Eagles Crossing live stream was probably the funniest story of the past year or so. We need to carry on its memory. I think it depends on who you ask. I don't know. I would hope that right now that the GK Pro guys are that's one of those wounds that's healed up that you can talk about. That's a scar that you can maybe brag or talk about. Directly afterwards, they put a lot of work into that, and to have that not work out was very unfortunate. Now, from the outside, the whole scenario playing along was a lot of fun. It was funny. The whole, the chat room that was in there was phenomenal. It was so much fun. Now, I obviously seeing the production die, I died a little bit inside knowing that they had such good intentions that just didn't work out for them. But from the outside looking in, I was having as much fun as anybody else. So Ray, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll ask the GK Pro guys about what all happened after the fact there. But I don't talk with them a lot. I hear them on some of our conference calls when we do camera checks and stuff. There's a few of the guys that I think are still doing that, but I don't really see them very often. I hope that they can get out here and I can see them because go to dinner with them again at the Askren celebrity thing, which didn't happen this year. Normally happens in like July or something, I think, but we didn't do it this year, or at least I was not privy to it. But usually, I at least know what's going on, and they've come out for that. So yeah, I hope they're killing it. I hope GK's killing it with the skin stuff now. I hope they're doing all sorts of fun stuff. So Aaron says, how about Ian during the round saying Rick and Dick are getting broken off by this course? Clearly, he didn't mean it the way it came off. I don't think he did. That doesn't seem like Ian might push the boundaries a little bit, but that might be a little bit too far even for him. Man, you talk enough, whether it's this podcast or commentary or sideline, you're bound to say something that sounds sexual. It's just the nature of the beast. And as a society, we're very apt to hear that kind of stuff. And it's fun. I mean, look at the Terry comment about the trees sucking in the disc. I made sure to say that very distinctly, so I would not make that mistake. Or Germ the other day on the Jomez thing, which I always thought was funny when Terry was kicking the disc. And it looked like Terry was kicking the disc, and Germ had done the same thing. I thought it was funny that they didn't go back. That was post-production. Why didn't they go back and re-record that? Because it was funny. And it would have been a little more work for them to stop, rewind, start re-recording so Germ could kind of correct himself. So it's just one of those things. You're bound to say something. And I'm sure there's been enough about me. At the end of the year, I want to see a commentary tourney. That would be fun. I mean, Doss, Philo would beat us pretty badly. Beat everybody pretty badly. Earhart, I don't know how Earhart's playing lately. Maybe he can keep up with Philo. I don't know. Perkins as well. Yeah. Maybe doubles. Maybe you take like the color commentators, which are usually the pros, and you have to pair them up with either their in-booth pair or just random draw, and you stick them with a play-by-play guy. So you could get like Philo and Charlie, or Terry's the secret though. Like, he is the play-by-play guy, but he's a pretty solid golfer. So, and I think Ian might be too. I don't know where Ian stands right now. For a while though, Ian was getting pretty good. So I don't know where Ian is right now as far as his golf game. Anything else on the board? Do we have any questions? What else? What else is going on? Obviously, we got PEI this weekend. I expect more players to drop out. Um, it's just who wants to play the week after Worlds? I'm a little shocked Isaac is, but as he said, he wants to get up to the island. It was funny when he was talking about Anne of Green Gables. Like that was a book series that I never read, and I probably didn't read it as a kid because it sounded girly. I can't go back into my teenager brain to know why. I also probably wasn't reading that type of book back then. I was more into like mysteries and go figure sci-fi books as that trend has continued. So Anne of Green Gables would have never probably piqued my interest. But Isaac sounds like a very well-read young man, and good for him. So for him to go up there, that's going to be pretty cool for the locals. Being able to see the fresh world champ is going to be an honor. Ray asked me, was I a parrot head at all? No. R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett, but no. Never my thing. Like there's a whole subculture of like people who follow bands around. And there's a lot of different types. Like obviously the jam bands, you've got Fish and String Cheese and Big Woo and all that kind of thing. But you also have like the Parrot Heads, you got the Dave people, the Deadheads, obviously, when that was around. And still, I think still some of the Deadheads still go around like that. But like that is a whole subculture, regardless of the type of music. That is a whole subculture of fan that was never my thing. And most of those bands, it hasn't been my thing. The closest I get to that, I think, is, I'm sure this is with any band. There's probably like, I know people who have followed The Cure around a little bit. That was when I was younger. I knew some guys that did that. Pearl Jam as well. I know there's a whole dedicated group that follow Pearl Jam. I think it's smaller than what you normally see at the other type of bands, but it just wasn't. Pearl Jam is as close as I get to that jam band kind of thing, and they're not a jam band, but they do kind of have a little bit of a following like that. So, but no, never a Parrot Head. Never been to a Margaritaville. Nothing like that has ever crossed, other than Margaritaville and Cheeseburger in Paradise. Couldn't name another Jimmy Buffett song. And my in-laws sometimes have Jimmy Buffett radio playing. And I probably know some of the songs, but never really think about it. And Ray says he went once in Cincinnati. It was pretty fun. Just good vibes. Yeah, I totally could get that. That seems like a lot of people hanging out, loving life, relaxing, drinking, whatever they're drinking, whether it's beers or margaritas or what. I could see that being a total chill kind of experience. Like just maybe not even having to consume anything would probably still be fun. Didn't he have like a cannon he used to shoot off too or something? I forget. But yeah. Either trust fund or homeless types follow music tours. I disagree with that. Like, how are you homeless but somehow still making money to get into these concerts? Like, what are you doing to get in these concerts? Maybe some trust fund kids. But the people I knew were more so saved up a bunch of money during the year, and then in the summer would go on like a 2 to 3 week tour seeing a band 5 times. Like, cool, we're going to follow The Cure when they're touring the Midwest. We're going to hit Chicago, Minneapolis, Milwaukee if they played Milwaukee. Maybe go to Cincinnati or Indianapolis and kind of just do a full tour like that in a 1 to 2 week period. That's the kind of people that I knew, but that's as close as I get. Ray says, not much of a juggalo then, am I? No, I'm not. Not a juggalo either. That is, again, not a jam band in the slightest, but there is that subculture of people who just, like, they identify with the juggalos. And, is it Nasser? I think on, or is it his brother? One of the guys who did the Hitting the Line podcast. I follow him on Twitter, and great guy. Total juggalo. Like inside and out, man. That guy's posting about ICP all the time. And I get a kick out of it. I love it. I love seeing inside of that kind of culture. Not my thing, but it's fun. Carolina says I'm a Carney hater. I'm not a Carney hater. I love me my local county fairs. He says he would follow the Antique Road show. I don't think I could do that. Citizen says that he had a friend who sold PB&J out of the car following the Grateful Dead. Man, there's some people that'll buy anything, I suppose. Years ago, I think Terry and I talked about like just going to Dave Matthews Band concerts in the area because they always play Alpine and they always play, not always, but they used to play Summerfest and just getting a bunch of frisbees, either Ultra Stars or even putters, and just stamping Dave Matthews Band on them. Like at the time, obviously we weren't necessarily caring. We thought about it, but we didn't necessarily care about the copyright stuff. And back then, if you knew some people, you could get anything you want stamped on a disc. Usually if you do, like if you go to DD and you want like a Dimax, a one-off, I don't think they have any problem for the most part putting whatever you want on it. I think. And don't quote me on that. I don't know. Because you're not there to like resell it for a ton of cash. But if you wanted to order, again, like 200 Grateful Dead discs, you can't do that. Like I don't think many of the manufacturers will let you anymore. Gateway used to be really good about that. They would let you put anything. We used to put Brewers logos on discs for local tournaments and stuff like that. Like Dave, at the time, McCormick, he didn't really have a care in the world. I don't know if he does it anymore. I don't know what a lot of the disc golf, I haven't tried to order stamps or anything like that in a long time, but we had thought, Terry and I were like, oh man, we could probably make a fortune just buying like 500 Frisbees and just going to these jam bands and selling them out of our car. Probably make a couple grand is what we thought. We never did it, never tried. I think we'd rather play disc golf on weekends than do that. Citizen says, I bet the Grateful Dead Eagle discs sold like fire. Probably. I don't know. We don't know any of those insider information. Ray says, what's the biggest music festival I've ever attended? Did I ever make it to a Lollapalooza? I did not make it to a Lollapalooza. I haven't been to many big festivals. I'm not so much a festival guy. Went to a couple Warp tours when they would swing through town. Those were fun. But even those were kind of small compared to some of these bigger ones, I think. I haven't been to the bigger ones, so I don't know. Summerfest is technically the world's biggest music festival. It's this huge area in Milwaukee where you just have bands playing all the time. You can walk, 300 feet from one stage to another, and you just keep going. So that is a festival, but it's not like a music festival. It's a permanent kind of location. So we go to Summerfest for bands all the time, but for some reason, even though I know it is a festival, I don't consider it like a music fest, like Riot Fest or Lollapalooza or these traveling ones that go around. Warp Tour was the only one. No shock to anyone that I went to the Warp Tour. Saw, Face to Face, Alkaline Trio, Less Than Jake, like all the old classic late 90s, early 2000s punk bands. That's what I was into. So that's what I did. The Simon line. I don't know a lot about the Simon line. Like, I know he's selling it. Am I going to sell out? I heard they're like $40. If someone's willing to buy, and supply and demand. I heard people complaining about the price of the disc. I mean, you hear people complain about everything, so I guess I could say that literally about anything. I don't have a problem with it. If people really want them, they'll buy them. If not, the price will go down. If you think $40 is too much, convince everybody in the world not to buy them. And MVP will lower the price. My guess, Not going to happen. My guess is that there's a $40 price point, that, especially for Simon, that people will just hand over, because I would be one of them. And I probably will. I'll probably talk to Terry, because he'll get a handful of them, and I'll buy one or two just for a little collection, just like I did the Buzz. I got a handful of 20-year Buzzes thanks to Terry. I bought one from Daddy Disc Golf, and that's kind of all I thought I was going to get. But Terry had told me that he was fortunate enough that he got a few extra that he wasn't expecting, and they asked me if I would like to buy. I said yeah, because I told him originally I was like, hey, yeah, I'll buy a a handful of them, and then he found out, he's like, oh no, I'm only getting like X amount. I think he was only going to get like 25 or something, because they were really limited on the Buzzes. So he said, you can get one off of me. And so that's why I went to Daddy Disc Golf, who was awesome, and he got me one. Thumbs up to Daddy. But then Terry was like, oh, actually, they ended up giving me a few extras that I didn't expect. So would you like a few more? And I said, well, yes, I would, Terry Miller. I don't have them yet. I got the one from Daddy Disc Golf. It's upstairs. Don't have Terry's yet, because he hasn't been around. We've been like ships in the night. Tim Court says WOMAD was the largest that he saw. Jazz Fest in NOLA is the best. I've heard that. I've heard Jazz Fest is a blast. My mother-in-law went there a couple of years ago and said she just loved it. I think that could be cool. We're talking current events now. Burning Man was this past weekend, and it got rained on, so it turned into a giant mud pit, and it was scary. One person died. Basically, everything turned to mud, and nobody could leave, and everyone had to hoard their food and water. And there was a story about, was it Diplo? Cindy Crawford and like Chris Rock had to like hitchhike out of Burning Man. There's a trio of people I don't think I'd ever put together. But I mean, it's a big Burning Man is like a big wannabe hippie fest for corporate. I don't know. I could never see myself doing Burning Man. Eric says just the prototype normal stock will be 40. The normal releases will be a normal price. All right, cool. So if you want a prototype, then it's well worth it. That is way worth it. Hell, I think the stock ones could go for 40, and people would complain but still sell out. Blue Boy says someone always dies at Burning Man. Do they? I don't know enough about Burning Man, to be honest. I know a bunch of techies and kind of influencers and hipsters go out to the desert, pretend like they're in like a commune, and do influencer bull crap, and then come out and go back to their normal lives. I don't know. It seems really phony to me. Not gonna lie. But I've never been there. I'm sure for some people it is a visionary experience, and I don't want to yuck anyone else's yum. Good for them. David Garb says there is disc golf at Burning Man. It's one of my 250 courses. That's cool. I wouldn't go out of my way to do that just for the disc golf, but if I were a Burning Man person and disc golf were there, I would do it. But again, I don't know enough about Burning Man. It just feels in my gut. That's how it feels. I might be wrong. So, anyway, what else? Do we have anything else for the show tonight? Obviously, Isaac joined us earlier, talked about his win. The guy's awesome. Alden Harris was in the board, chatting with some of our Smashies. Is there any... We could look for PDGA news, although, again, it's Worlds Week, so there's rarely PDGA news, but this would be a good week to hide something if you were going to announce something. So let's see if they're trying to cover anything up, if the PDGA is trying to sneak something past us. They're not. It says, a week ago, thanks for making public comment a success. Talking about some new discs that are being approved. That's it. Yeah. And and all their news is all talking about Worlds. Rightfully so. I do have to go check out good friend of the show, Dynamite Danavici. He cheated on us and went on another podcast. He went on, I think, is it Debate Night or something? I don't know, with Brody? Because, hold on. Social media drama hour on Smashbox. Brody was being Brody on Twitter. Like, he was riling some people up. And again, when it comes to Brody, for me, I agree with the guy sometimes, and sometimes I disagree. I think he's overall a net positive for the sport. And I think sometimes he says stupid things on Twitter. Sometimes he says not stupid things on Twitter. I'm sure I do the same thing. I'm not going to put myself above or below anybody, especially when it comes to Twitter, because that's a place to put stupid things. Because it's Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But this particular incident, Brody was doing like more or less trophy reviews and called a lot of our trophies looked like they came out of a garage sale, which personally I disagree with. I've said I think if you have a really cool history of an event, play on that history. You know, the AFDO, which I think is what kind of sparked this, with the Datsun steering wheel with the cool wood on the inside with the engraving. I don't think Brody thought that was nearly as cool as some people, but he also didn't know the history at first. And I think even after he knew the history, I don't think he necessarily cared. Which is fine. Everyone can have their opinions. Personally, I think shitting on trophies is really lame. Unless, I mean, in general, even if the trophy is objectively bad, just, you know, whatever. I happen to love some of our more unique trophies. The propeller, the belt buckle, the steering wheel. You know, I would rather have more of a unique trophy set than not. If your event has no history or is relatively new, sure, go out and get a big glass goblet or a giant silver cup. Start putting names on it. Build a history. That's fine. But to me, those are a dime a dozen. Cool. A giant silver cup. We have a local event here in Wisconsin that hands out one of those. So it's literally called the Silver Cup. It used to be called Manitowoc in the Park. It was on the Pro Tour for a while. I mean, it's a cool trophy. I'd love to win it. But is it really that unique? If other places are handing out silver cups, I don't know. So me personally, I like the uniqueness. That's just me. But anyway, so Brody was talking, and then he went on to be like rating different trophies, which I thought was fine and dandy. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people are playing into a joke. Dynamite going on and poked the bear a little bit. And then from there, they went back and forth. They chipped back and forth. And of course, as Brody's big thing is, well, fine, come on and debate me. Whatever. And Dana did. He was on the show today, and I haven't had a chance. I'll probably listen to it tomorrow. Because Mo says it's objectively a very funny podcast. So I do want to see how, what went on. I guess it was a very respectable debate. It was a very conversation, as I expect, between those two. Dana and Brody are both grown men. And, they're both fine with each other. I think Brody plays a little bit bigger on social media, but when you get him, I've hung out with Brody. When you get him on a more individual one-on-one, he's been on our show. He's always welcome to come on the show. He's fine. He's a fine human. A lot of people do or don't like him. I don't think it matters. Again, I think overall he's a net positive for our sport. So I don't always agree with him, but overall, thing. So I'm gonna have to check out the Dynamite going on one of the Foundation podcasts. Ray says, did I see the illustrations of past players that were used for the trailers and bumpers for Worlds? It looked like AI. I don't know how it was created. I think it was the Jomez artist that did that. Usually, I don't know, maybe it was Dustin. not Dust Moreau, but Dustin from the Pro Tour. I don't know who did it, and I'm not going to crap on it. Is it my style? Not particularly, but it seemed fine to me. Like, when you freeze frame it and zoom in on it, does it, could people do it better with more time? Maybe. Maybe it was a style, again, some people hate Van Gogh. Some people hate Dali. It's art. Art, I guess art is meant to be judged by every individual in the world. Who are we to judge? Was it made with AI? I have no clue. I don't know how it was made. So I can't say one way or the other. I hope that there was some artist that put time into that and did that, and that was what they got, and that I hope they looked at that and said, I'm very proud of this. That's all you can ask. But I don't know how it was created. What else is out there? Citizen says the only trophy I know that really matters in sports is the green jacket and the Stanley Cup. Everything else is where is the check. Yeah, I think in pro sports, I mean, look at football. College football has a ton of these unique, fun trophies. I mean, I think of Wisconsin and Minnesota that go for Paul Bunyan's axe. It's a freaking axe. It's got a bunch of carvings in it, from the winners. It's a cool, unique trophy for the team that wins it. It's cool. And I know there's a bunch of them. I'm sure everyone on the board will start rattling off whatever their local college sports team fights for. There's a ton of them. The Stanley Cup obviously has a lot of history. Which is funny. The green jacket is funny because that's not even the trophy. That's like an extra thing. The trophy, if you look at it, is, I believe, it is at least this year's looked like the building at the Masters. I think that's what it was. I think it looked like the building at the Masters. That was the actual trophy. The green jacket isn't the trophy. They have a different trophy that looks like the what's the word? Clubhouse. I couldn't spit it out. Looks like the clubhouse. That's what the Masters trophy is. I think you can look it up online. Green jacket's like an extra. What do I know? So, yeah, the Lombardi Trophy is awesome. I think that carries a lot of weight. There's a few of the baseball trophies that I recognize, but there's the one that kind of swirls around and goes up. It's glass. I can't remember what that offhand. I mean, I think the NBA trophy is relatively iconic. Everyone pictures, at least I do, Michael Jordan hugging it. I think that's a pretty fine trophy when it comes to professional sports. And again, I'm not here to trophy talk. But as far as iconicness, I think that's a different subject. Like, is there anything special about this giant silver cup for the Stanley Cup? No. But it has the history, which I think is cool. And the fact of how they treat it and where it goes. And then, it's treated with, white gloves until it's handed off to the team. And then they abuse it. They do whatever they want out of it. That's awesome. The Stanley Cup has history. And that's what, again, if right now your tournament has no history, get a cool, and put that in quotes, cool trophy. It doesn't have to do with whatever's local. I think it's kind of cool when our trophies represent the local thing. I mean, I liked the World's Trophy well enough. It didn't, to me, scream Vermont. It didn't scream Worlds. Worlds has had a different trophy every year. It's kind of up to the locals who run at the TDs and stuff to get a trophy. There's been some really cool Worlds trophies, in my opinion. There's been some mediocre ones, in my opinion. Whatever. So. For the Stanley Cup, each player gets to keep it for a week. Yeah. And then they don't treat it with white gloves like they do before it's handed to them. I just think it's really funny pomp and circumstance. So, they have it in this super case and it's all polished up. And the gentleman has, again, the white gloves when he's holding it. And then after the team wins, they hand it to him and it just becomes can't, I don't even want to imagine what those athletes have done to that trophy or with that trophy. Ugh. Like, someone's puked in that trophy multiple times. There's no way that hasn't happened. It's great. Yeah. I hope they sterilize that thing after every person hands it off. I hope it goes through a full sterilization. Yeah, the America's Cup that dates back to 1851. Some really iconic trophies out there. Ray asks, if disc golf was awarded a fancy piece of clothing as a trophy, what would it be? We tried this. Year one of the Pro Tour, if you think back, there were a few things. There was this really shiny silver jacket. Like, it was like reflective silver. I think Katrina Allen won it the first year, I think. And they also had a Pro Tour ring. God, somewhere, I don't know if I can bring it up. Let's see if I can. I thought I had a picture of it way back when. Shiny jacket. Let's see if it comes up in my Google, if I can find it. I'd have to go back to, gotta be what, 2016 was the first year of the Pro Tour. 2017? 2016. How did Shiny Jacket bring up just tons of pictures of my kids? I don't get it. I don't know. Well, some of these I get. Anyway, I can't find it. But somewhere I think I have a picture of like the silver jacket that was going to be won by the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Was it the points leader or was it the Tour champion? I think it was the Tour champion. I think the points leader got the ring. So, colored vest for tour leader, tournament leader, etc. Yeah, I mean, I think we could do some cool things. I mean, we have the obelisks for the PDGA. Those are pretty standard. I've got no issue with those. I don't have an issue, again, I don't have an issue with any of them. I don't really care. Almost everyone's happy when they win. You're happy you get a trophy. If you get a trophy, you look at it and go, oh, I won this trophy for first place. Blah, I don't like it. That's a you problem. I do understand pros that don't want trophies for second, third, fourth. I mean, we've seen that for years. Terry has a couple non-winning trophies from tournaments like USDGC and GBO and a couple other of those where players like just don't want them because they don't care about second or third place trophies. They care about winning trophies. And so they're looking to maybe get rid of them or hand them off somewhere. And so Terry's always willing to take them because he thinks it's hilarious that he has got like a USDGC trophy, like I think a second or third place USDGC trophy somewhere. He didn't win it. So Ricky always sells his. He sells his trophies, his other ones. Yeah, it makes sense. Again, these guys care about winning. You or me, man, that second place USDGC trophy would be awesome. Because I know I ain't never getting a winning one. Never getting a second place one either, but that's a whole nother subject. But even like around on the other side of this wall, right over here, is a small little area of all my trophies that I've won. I like every one of them. Well, I'm going to wrap this up for the night. It's 11:25 Central Time. I think we had a pretty good night. Sans Terry, as he decided to just be a world traveler and go over to Croatia. What was his exact text? I don't know. He literally told me what did he say? He said I do want to give a shout out to my buddy Steve Held, who won Northwoods Open in MP40. Came down to like the last 2 holes, and he drained a 40-foot death putt to do it. So, let's see here. Maybe he sent it to me in a text because it's not in my chat. It's funny. Terry and I chat like 5 different places. He says, I'm on a plane to Brussels and then Estonia during the show tonight. Let me know what you might want from me. This was stuff because I needed Isaac's information. He's like, yep, I'll be running a disc golf doubles and hanging with the locals and probably even playing in a C tier in Masters. So that's what Terry's doing. He flew over to Europe to do that. He probably used credit card points or something silly. Gosh. But ultimately, that's where Terry is tonight. And I hope he does well. I hope he wins his Masters event. I hope the whole city turns out for doubles and he makes it a nice profitable travel. So, someone says check another area for dust. Oh yeah, dust. Those are the pro. Yep, that is a picture right there. I will see if I can bring that up here. Let's see if I can find right here. So I'm going to show you what the jackets look like. They were these silver shiny jackets. They were from Dude, and they were the first Disc Golf Pro Tour ones. Yep. So somewhere, I knew Cat. I forgot Paul had it. I couldn't remember if it was Paul or Ricky that got it, but they both got these shiny jerseys. So it wasn't crazy. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks, Dust. Yeah. That lasted 1 year. And I know Steve Dodge wanted to make it a regular thing, but some things work and some things don't. And that didn't work for him. So. Ray says, great interview and great show, Johnny. Well, thank you. I did more prep for the Isaac interview than I normally do because I usually lean heavily on Terry for interviews. As everyone knows, I tend to monitor the board, kind of do the little switching. And Terry has usually been on site or knows the player, so he can kind of rattle off. And I'll throw my 2 cents in. But I did a little bit of research for the Isaac interview. Not going to lie, but I really did want Gannon to be on the show. I wanted him to be my co-host because I thought it would really be fun to have Gannon surprise Isaac with Gannon as the co-host, but it didn't work out. So, all right. Okay, let's try that again. All right, everybody. For your 2-time major champion and 1-time world champion, Isaac Robinson. For me, Johnny V, for all of our Patreon supporters, you know who you are, patreon.com/smashboxtv. I cannot talk. Patreon.com/smashboxtv, where you can become a patron of the show for as little as $1 a month. I want to say thank you to everybody who made the show fun tonight. I'm not going to sit up all night and talk music like I have in the past when I do a solo show. I'm actually going to get some sleep. Kids are back in school, which means I'm getting up early again to make sure they're on the road and where they need to be. Getting everybody breakfast and dressed. That's my morning. I'll be up in less than 6 hours. I got to get up. So it's been a fun show. Thanks to everybody who joined. This was podcast episode 470, and I am your host, Johnny V. Have a great night, and we will see you in Zero After Show this week. But we'll see you next week when we talk to somebody, maybe the PEI winner. Maybe we'll just do a recap. Who knows? You never know. Anything could happen. Have a wonderful night.